This right here is the Lenovo Legion 5i Pro gaming laptop, and this is the most powerful gaming laptop that I've reviewed so far. So in this video, we're going to take a look at all the special features of this laptop, and we are going to put it to the test. But before we do that, I got to give you guys my disclaimer that this laptop is borrowed. This is not a sponsored video, so anything good I'm going to say about the laptop, it's just my opinion based on my experience. And with that out of the way, let's get started with talking about some of the specs of this laptop. This laptop has an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3060, a 12th gen Intel Core i7, a 2TB SSD, and a 16-inch WQXGA display that has a refresh rate of up to 165 Hz. So that 16-inch display is one of the big features of this laptop, and I want to talk about it a little bit more. It has a 16:10 aspect ratio, which means that it's a little bit taller and not as wide. And as I just mentioned, it has a refresh rate of up to 165, so you can play games well over 100 FPS. And it has a brightness of 500 nits, and it gets very bright, especially when you have HDR on. It is very impressive how bright this laptop can get. The resolution is 2560 by 1600, and I gotta say at this point I'm already used to that resolution. Going back to a 1080p laptop just doesn't feel the same. The display on this laptop is one of the things I love about it, but it's really hard to show on camera. Because obviously on YouTube I can only show 60 FPS, I can't show gameplay above 100 FPS, and it looks so good. But you gotta take my word for it, it looks amazing. And on the right hand side you can see a full-size USB port and a switch that will deactivate the webcam for privacy. On the back of the laptop you can see some more ports. Here's a power input, another USB port, well you got two of them right there, a HDMI port and an Ethernet port. But now let's move on to the keyboard. As you can see, it has an RGB keyboard, as most gaming laptops do, but this is a Legion True Strike gaming keyboard. As you can see, it's a full-size keyboard. You got a number pad on the side, which is a little bit awkward because I'm used to not having a number pad on a laptop. So when I'm typing out the wrong thing because I'm not used to having that number pad, but it's still good to have. I know a lot of people, they like having the number pad. It helps for certain games like MMOs or RPGs. So Lenovo, they call this the True Strike keyboard because of the excellent key travel that it has. It has a 1.5mm key travel time. And I also love that the trackpad is huge. There is no right and left click button, but that's okay because we're already used to not having it. I definitely prefer having the large trackpad and getting rid of the two buttons on the bottom. Obviously it's not good for gaming, but for productivity, it comes in handy. So now let's talk about battery life. This laptop has an 80-watt battery. And obviously when you're playing at high settings, it is not going to last long. It'll probably last 10 to 20 minutes. If you go into the Lenovo Vantage app, you can go ahead and select quiet mode. And this will obviously turn off the fans. It will make it very quiet, but it will also give you great battery life. So this is great if you're playing indie games or games that don't require a lot of performance. So sometimes with these gaming laptops, I don't pay any mind to these built-in apps, but this Lenovo Vantage app is really handy, being able to switch between the power modes. But when I was web browsing, I put it in balance mode so that it was a little bit more quieter, but I still got a great performance. There's also hybrid mode, which allows you to switch between the integrated Intel graphics and the NVIDIA RTX graphics card that is inside. So that's another option you have to save your battery life. Okay, so in a minute, we're gonna take a closer look at the performance and some gameplay at the highest settings. But first, let's take a look at the design. As you can see with the size, it is not too thick, not too bulky, but considering how much power this is and considering that it is a 16-inch laptop, it is pretty thin, but I don't think that this is a everyday laptop. I mean, it's not too heavy, but I wouldn't recommend it as a everyday laptop. That would be like for a tablet or an ultrabook. But this is great for travel. If you want something powerful on the go when you're traveling, as you can see, it's not going to take up too much space on your luggage. So it has a really cool look to it, and it doesn't overdo it with the RGB lighting, which I like. Okay, so enough about the design. Let's talk about some gameplay and performance at the highest settings, and let's push this laptop a little bit. And of course, this had to be the first game that I try out because it just came out at the time when I was testing out this laptop. Of course, I am playing on high settings with performance mode enabled, and the game almost never went under 100 FPS. And that's pretty much the same story for other games that I tried out too, like Borderlands 3, Godfall, Death Stranding. I tried out a bunch of games. I mean, these are all games that I have in my library. I was specifically looking for games that require a lot of graphics power. And all these games, they did very well, over 100 FPS, except for Godfall. Godfall, when I put it in really high settings, that one kind of hit around 70 FPS. One thing to keep in mind about performance mode is that the laptop will be pretty loud. I mean, it's kind of hard to describe, but just take a listen for yourself. So as you can hear, the fans are going pretty crazy. It's not too loud, especially when you got our headphones, you can't hear it. It can be a little bit distracting. And I don't recommend leaving it in performance mode for hours at a time. So that's the one downside. The fans, they will go crazy, blowing out hot air. But overall, the laptop itself stays pretty cool. Other than the hot air blowing out, like I said in the beginning of the video, I tend to put it on balance mode, where you're still getting good performance, but the fans on the laptop are not going crazy. And realistically, as long as you're hitting 60 FPS and you're playing a casual game, you don't need to put it at the highest settings. But then again, that's just me. I'm actually curious to try out how gaming works when you put it on quiet mode. So that might be my next video. Stay tuned for that. And if you have any questions, you can follow me on Instagram or on TikTok at ernesto.tech.